there, Michelle here from McQuaid TV. We're helping you find ways to move from functioning to flourishing by putting the latest science to the real-world test. Today, I'm very pleased to introduce you to Dr. Justine Tuffley. Justine, on top of being a mother of 5 boys, including 2 sets of twins, is a doctor who's passionate about helping us find healthy and happy ways to live. She's an exercise enthusiast who's completed several ultramarathons and long-distance triathlons, and after the birth of her 5th child, she realised there was more to health than diagnosing and treating disease, and wanted to switch her focus from what's wrong with a person to focus instead on how we can be better, healthier and happier. Justine, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Michelle. It's very lovely to be here.
Now, Justine, you and I came across each other a couple of years ago where you were going through a really interesting transition of, kids getting to school age, an amazing background in terms of medical practice yourself, and asking kind of what's next and how do you put your passions out there into the world. And I know health has been very much one of your passions. So can you help us perhaps understand about what exactly does good health look like these days, especially as there seems to be so many pieces of contradictory advice out there in the market?
Yes, absolutely. If you'd asked me 10 years ago when I was in general practice, I would have given you a totally different answer. I would have said that being healthy is really just the absence of disease. And if I can't diagnose you with something, then you're healthy and I can't help you. And for me, after the birth of my 5th child, and he was in intensive care for many, many months, it was a time of reflection, and I really began to question, what do people really want? How can I help people live healthier and happier lives? I think there's more to health than just the absence of disease. And during this time, I think there's these fundamental components to health, which are we need to eat well, and we need to eat nutritious food, and we need to limit our processed food. But most of us have actually got this nutritional knowledge of what's healthy. We know that vegetables are good for us. But it's how do we do it? How do we do it in our busy lives with all this different advice? And I teach people to eat mindfully, just the practice of slowing down. In this chaotic world, we need to slow down and savour our food and really taste it and enjoy it. And if you practice mindful eating, you tend to eat less, but you can eat nutritiously and you can eat well. And a very similar principle applies with exercise. We know we should exercise. Doctors tell us all the time, you need to exercise. But the question that people had for me is, but how do I fit it in? How do I start that exercise off? And how do I get it going in my busy life? And so therefore I'm concentrating on teaching people, let's look at how you form a new habit. And what exercise do you do that you love? It needs to be something you really enjoy doing, because that helps you keep it up long term. And let's look at how you form a new habit, and let's fit that into your life. And look, the third component for me is this really underrated but most essential component, which is sleep. And adults need a good 8 hours sleep a night. And if you consistently are sleep deprived, you just accumulate a huge sleep debt. And when we're tired, we make poor food choices, and we're too tired to exercise, and then a vicious cycle starts of bad sleep, poor food choices, and not exercising. And for many people, the simplest way to start is with sleep. And if you get your sleep right, then you'll often make good food choices and you'll exercise. And the last component for me is actually about living a life that is meaningful and purposeful, and learning to be grateful for what we have, and demonstrating kindness and compassion towards others. So it's those 4 components that I think are the foundations of health.
I think they interlock really beautifully, Justine, and that meaning and purpose is often where I know for myself it's been really important to start when I'm making shifts in these areas, because sheer willpower alone isn't enough to get me there for very long. Might get me a little way there, but it's very hard to sustain. So when it comes to finding some sense of meaning and purpose around why we want to be able to, sleep well, eat healthy, move regularly, how do you help people? How do they tap into what that meaning and purpose might be for them?
Well, it also, I just try to get people to go back to basics and say, what are you doing this for? And many women come to me because they're frustrated with their weight and they want to lose weight and they believe that if they weigh less, they'll be happier. And I have to question, will that actually make you happier? Will your new job make you happier? Will losing weight make you happier? And ultimately, many people find perhaps that's the wrong reason that they're doing it. And let's concentrate on well-being. If you feel well and you're happy, then that is often the answer that people are looking for. And I agree that we just have this small amount of willpower, and willpower is not enough. And that's why so many people go on diets, and with 2 to 3 weeks they've lost their willpower and they've actually forgotten what they were doing it for. They've forgotten the meaning and the purpose behind it all. And so they drop that diet and plateau for a while, move on to another diet. And they need to find the meaning and the purpose behind it and why they're doing it, and that's what sustains them in the long term.
I know one of the big things that made a difference for me in diet and that sense of connecting to meaning and purpose was when I stopped worrying so much about how much I weighed and started focusing more on the energy that food was giving me, because my energy was so fundamental to why I was showing up in the world and what I wanted to be able to do in the world, being that to run around and keep up with my kids, or be it to be able to deliver the work that I really valued, or just to have that time with friends and family and actually feel awake and vital while I was with them, rather than kind of slumped waiting for when the next nana nap would come along. So I know that for me was a really important shift. But I guess what else are you finding in terms of helping people eat better? Because as you said earlier, we know we're meant to eat enough vegetables. We know we're meant to stay away from too many sugary or fried foods. But often, and I think particularly as winter comes, there's some of that evolutionary pull of, wanting to store the fat for winter that has us reaching for those sorts of comfort foods. So are there small changes that you find help your clients around their eating habits that begin to shift them more towards those positive choices in terms of food we're consuming?
Yes. I also think the fundamental thing is that most of us have got the nutritional advice. We know what to eat, but we are bombarded with messages about diet. And primarily it's this is what you should be eating and this is what you shouldn't be eating. And it's a very restrictive sense as well. Diets are all very much about this is what you should be eating and what you shouldn't be eating. And the most fundamental thing that women can do in particular is change the focus from weight to well-being. And if you learn to eat mindfully, then often you will reduce the amount that you eat. And if a really easy question and an easy starting point is to say to yourself, am I hungry? Every time you approach food, just that one question, am I hungry? And quite often the answer is no. And that's actually not the reason you're seeking out food. We eat for so many reasons, and hunger's one small reason. We eat because we're bored. We eat because of social interactions. We eat because we're upset or we're emotional, perhaps we're celebrating or perhaps we're commiserating, and we eat for all this variety of reasons. And the good starting point is, am I hungry? And sometimes that's enough to just get the ball rolling in your mind to think, actually, I'm not hungry. I'm not going to eat this. What am I actually looking for? And that's a great starting point. And then the second process from there is to slow down your eating. These are really simple concepts, but they can dramatically change the way that you eat. If you slow down and you learn to listen to your body, you actually begin to register when you're full. And many women go from eating a full plate and that mentality with our children, finish all your plate of food. They go from eating the whole plate to eating half a plate of food, and they're eating slowly and they're savouring it, enjoying it, but they're registering that they're full. Because too often we eat too quickly and we haven't even had time for the food to go down to our stomach to tell our brain, oh, I've had enough. So the first question is, am I hungry? And the second one is, slow down, savour your food, and you've probably actually had enough. So to really focus, this is more on the well-being rather than just the weight. And weight is... Many women are fixated on weight and want to lose weight, but often they will lose weight just by becoming mindful about what they're eating without even intentionally losing weight.
I think those are great tips, and again, something anyone could start trying today. What about, you mentioned the importance of sleep, and I know lots of people I work with, this is a real struggle for them, and particularly that kind of, one, getting into bed at a reasonable hour, but two, when you wake up at that 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the morning period and you're ruminating over and over what you haven't done or what you're yet to do. So what do you suggest in terms of helping people improve their sleeping habits and getting closer towards that 8 hours a night that you talked about?
Absolutely. So in the 2 hours prior to going to bed is a really crucial time, and we need to establish a regular time for going to bed where it's possible. Sometimes that is not possible, life's too busy, but a regular bedtime, because we have an internal body clock that is really very strong, and our body wants to go to bed at the same time each night, and it wants to get up in the morning. So try and establish a regular bedtime. And these days, the biggest interruption to sleep is screen time. It's really important to turn screens off a good hour before bed. Television's actually not as bad, but it's close-up screens. So laptops, phones especially, turn off your screens an hour before bed. Avoid caffeine and avoiding big meals. And for many people, they can feel quite relaxed when going to bed, and they get into bed and all the worries start. And they start to think about all those things that perhaps haven't bothered them that much during the day, but you lie down free of distractions and all the worries start. And a technique that I use with my clients is to have a designated worry time a couple of hours before bed. So you write down your worries, you fold up that bit of paper, and you make an agreement with yourself. I'm going to deal with those worries tomorrow, because there's nothing I can do tonight that is going to impact on those. So you're setting aside a worry time. And even with children, a worry time is fantastic. They can often have the little Guatemalan worry dolls that they tell their worries to. So you set aside a worry time. And if that's still if you still have worries that are interfering with your sleep, I teach people a variety of quick relaxation techniques, just a couple of minutes in duration. And everyone is quite particular on which relaxation techniques works for them. But you can lie in bed, and it can take 2 or 3 minutes of a relaxation technique just to assist with that process of getting off to sleep. And often that is enough to break that cycle of poor sleep. And if you wake up during the night, I say to clients, if you're awake for more than 20 minutes, get up and you go to another room and do something relaxing until you're ready to go back to bed. Or try your relaxation techniques again. And sometimes it's just trying to distract your brain from all those worries by concentrating on a quick relaxation technique that you've learned, and that can help you go back to sleep.
I know for me, even that sort of basic yoga, 16 breath meditation of, in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4. It's sort of, the modern version of counting sheep, I guess, for adults. But it can definitely help kind of wind me down. And I know at one stage when I was traveling a lot internationally, and so my body was in different time zones all the time, often dealing with that jet lag challenge with sleep, of just accepting that actually even lying there doing my 16 breath meditation was the second best state to be in other than sleep. So if I couldn't sleep, to at least stay there and keep breathing. And I think some of it was just giving myself the permission that instead of getting all, oh my God, I'm not asleep yet, how am I going to cope tomorrow, and I've got 101 things, I'm just going, it's okay, you're not asleep yet, but you're getting the second best thing after sleep, which is, a meditative resting state. And if that's all you've got available to you right now, then grab that with both hands and enjoy it while you can. Justine, you also, of course, talked about exercise, and we see ongoing media reports about, sitting being the new disease for many of us. So what can we do to get moving in constructive ways?
Yes, I think everyone just have as your basic philosophy that you need to move more. And it helps if you understand the basic neurological loop of creating a new habit, that if you recognise what a trigger is, or you create your own trigger to your new exercise, that can help. But I find many people actually really like exercising with someone, or having a partner, or forming a group. if you work towards a common goal, your success is so much greater. So I really encourage people to find someone who perhaps also wants to walk in the morning. It's much easier to get up if you're meeting someone than if you're just going to get up and go for a walk by yourself. It's also really important that they find something they actually enjoy doing. I have people who come to say to me, I really want to start running, I want to get fit, and they hate running. So find something that you actually enjoy doing. And if you are going to start a new exercise habit, I strongly suggest you do it in the morning. We only have a very small amount of willpower, and that is higher in the morning. So many studies have shown that success is greater for those who exercise in the morning rather than in the evening. And there's just a sense of having got it done and it's out of the way. And for those who try a new exercise habit in the evening, it can sort of lurk there all day. Oh, I need to do it, I need to do it, I need to do it. So do it in the morning, find your trigger that helps you form that new pattern, and it's really important to reward yourself. And for some people, enough of a reward is just, oh, I've done it, I can tick it off, that's great, or I've got a sense of been for a run and I feel good. And something else might be you promise yourself a new pair of running shoes or gym gear if you've exercised for 30 days, but don't forget the reward. We do need to be rewarded for our hard work.
I think that's so important, and I know as someone who did not exercise for large parts of my life, in fact, I swore for a long time that fun and run were two words that belonged in different sentences. For me, and getting up early in the morning was absolutely pivotal in getting that habit going. And again, I'd sworn most of my life I was not a morning person, could not get up early, but I found even just setting that alarm 10 minutes earlier, using the cue or the trigger like you're talking about, putting it out of reach of the bed and on top of my running clothes, would have me diving on it so I didn't wake up the kids, and then I was up and the running gear was right there, so it was easy to put it on. And I used an app in those days that was great, which was from the couch to 5K, and it kind of builds you up a little bit each week until 6 weeks later I was running 5K. And these days, I can't imagine not running in the morning. Those days I get a little bit twitchy that I'm going to miss the exercise and how will I get it in somewhere else. So I completely agree. I think getting a small habit, and even 10 minutes, if that's all you can fit in to start with in the morning, start with 10 minutes. But my experience, the natural high that the exercise gives you makes it much easier to start just building that time little bit by little bit. And these days, after swearing I was never a morning person, I get up at 5:30 each morning, and I actually do it joyfully and by choice, because like you're saying, I know that's going to be my exercise time. I know it sets the tone for the rest of the day for me. And it's a bit of my space before the kids get up and everything else starts to look after me. So, Justine, thank you so much for sharing the tips on finding that meaning for us, on helping us to eat well, sleep, and keep moving regularly.
Great. Thank you very much, Michelle. It was a pleasure.
If you want more practical tips from Justine on how you can improve your well-being, be sure to head on over to drjustinetuffley.com.au, where you'll find more of her wonderful work. And of course, if you're looking for other practical, tested and playful ways to move from functioning to flourishing at work, stop by michellemcquaid.com, leave your name and email address so you can hear all our news first. Remember, you are good enough, so don't be afraid to let your strengths shine. Until next time, take care.